What's going on, everybody? Ryan Thomas here live. It is February. What date is it today? We are already on February 27th, 2019. This month is going by really fast. Sorry if my voice is a little hoarse. I apologize for that. I've had my voice go in and out these last few days. It's been pretty interesting, to say the least, but woke up this morning and I'm in the process of getting ready for the day, and I take to Facebook and I see a post, and I'm just kind of dumbfounded by it. But my name wasn't mentioned in the post, and it was a slanderous post towards me that these things happen. This is quote unquote podcasting 101. Where you have certain people out there that are trying to get their name bigger, and in the process they try to kick other people down to make their name bigger. And these are the people that I can't stand, because I let the talent, I let the speaking, I let the performance do the talking for me. I don't try to kick other people down and belittle their show and do things like that. So the fact that I see this post, I'm thrilled that I saw it, but at the same time, in moments like these where it's a sports debate, I would appreciate it if I was actually tagged in the post. That way I could defend myself. That way I could explain myself as to why I posted what I posted, and the basis of the post. And the basis of the post was that I rattled off, a lot of facts about Doug Whaley's tenure while with the Buffalo Bills, and basically just said that I was looking forward to the future of the Buffalo Bills this season and Brandon Beane, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Brandon Beane does with this huge cap space that he has, with this massive undertaking that he has with the $80 million in cap space. You can check my facts there and see if those are right, which I know they are. But, the $80 million in cap space, any which way you look at it, the draft selections, it's going to be very interesting. So the post was in regards to the tenure of Doug Whaley. And I said I had some specific, seldomly few Buffalo Bills fans debate me on whether Doug Whaley was a good GM. And I was dumbfounded by it because, as I just said, it was a select few fans that were debating me on Doug Whaley, that thought that Doug Whaley was actually a good GM. And I put a poll out that received over 500 votes on all media platforms, social media platforms, Facebook, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and 96% believed that Doug Whaley was not great. The 4% that was out there were probably these jokers that believed that Doug Whaley was great. And there were people that literally said, and I quote, that they were in the building in One Bills Drive when I know that they weren't. And it's pretty demeaning to me to make me, to even attempt to make me believe that this guy was, quote unquote, in the building during this time. He was not. The dude is a Facebook Live guy. He just started a new podcast. He was not in the building. He was not in One Bills Drive at the time of this instance. This was 5-6 years ago. So my post said, I've had several Bills fans today, and I'll read it for you. I had several Bills fans today attempt to debate me on whether or not Doug Whaley was a great GM. My words have always been that he's the worst Buffalo Bills GM in my entire lifetime. I've lived through John Butler, Tom Donahoe, Buddy Nix, and Marv Levy. All three were terrible in their own facets, but Doug Whaley takes the cake. I rattled off a bullet of reasons why I believe Doug Whaley was the worst. Drafting E.J. Manuel 16th overall in 2013, trading the 2015 first-round pick for Sammy Watkins in the most loaded wide receiver class in recent memory. And another bullet point, after drafting Manuel, he said the success of the E.J. Manuel pick is what could help me keep my job or get me fired. The EJ pick is 100% on me. And I also listed off extending Marcel Darius to a $100 million deal, making him the highest paid defensive player. And I also said extending both Tyrod Taylor and Cordy Glenn. Extending Tyrod was his way of trying to cover his own tracks for his failure of taking E.J. Manuel. Cordy Glenn hasn't been healthy since he was drafted by the Bills, and he can't stay healthy in Cincy. To think Brandon Beane turned that player for pick trade into a pick for player trade to acquire the selection that led to them taking Josh Allen just shows a huge thinking gap. Drafting Cyrus Kouandjio, need I say more? Of the 27 players he drafted from 2013 to 2016, only 2 currently remain with the team, Shaq Lawson and John Miller. Sitting in both rooms while Buffalo hired Rex Ryan, who brought a scheme that didn't fit Whaley's players, and hiring the emotionless Doug Marrone, who would go on to quit the team. I can go on and give some more facts to why Whaley was terrible. Without Brandon Beane's forward thinking, the Buffalo Bills would be in ruin today. Thankfully, Doug is gone, and Beane decided to assume all the dead cap space in 2018, setting the team up for offseason success in 2019 with roughly $80 million in cap space. A franchise quarterback and making Buffalo's youth movement the reality rather than a talking point. If any Bills fan wants to continue to believe that Doug Whaley was great in the past, they can do that all they want, but look at the facts first. I know I do. So that was my post, and I don't know how anyone can disagree or try to slander those points. I don't understand it, because there's nothing in that is false. But I'm going to read off what this guy wrote to try to critique my point and try to slander me, essentially. The Mighty Oba Sports Report. Viewer beware and the rise of sports media. So you have right away the headline, Viewer beware and the rise of sports social media. Okay. The rise of sports programming that emanates from social media background has enhanced sports coverage across many venues. And then he goes on to continue to promote shows that I've never heard of. One show in particular asked me to be a guest on their show, and it has never come to fruition. But the names here, these young people, Jeremy Turner, Andre Robinson, Mookie Hawkins, and the Radford brothers, do outstanding work through their mediums and are the future of credible sports reporting. I've followed these young people for a number of years, and I must say they are impressive. These 4 podcasts are based here in Western New York, but it would not be a surprise if in the near future, but not too distant future, each will be noteworthy from coast to coast for integrity and their discussion of sports. There's another side who, because of the convenience of social media, are airing irresponsible broadcasts based on hearsay and gossip. One podcast decided to air a litany of false information regarding Doug Whaley's tenure as general manager of the Buffalo Bills. The host stated the following reasons, which he attributed as facts, stating that Whaley was the worst general manager of his lifetime here in Buffalo. Okay, so I said that Whaley was the worst GM in history, in my opinion. And I'm going to give you some facts as to why I believe that. That's it. Please allow me to fact-check these statements as misinformation to be the norm during the age of 45. So the guy goes on to write this puff/slander piece, propping up other people while putting other people down, and then proceeds to tell the world that he's 45 years old. I know I won't be doing that when I'm 45. That's for sure. I know that that's not what the road I'm going to take when I'm 45. And I'm bringing this up. People can say, why are you bringing this up? Why are you diving into this? Why are you even giving this time? I really shouldn't be giving it time because it's irrelevant. But at the same time, this guy claims to be a radio personality, and it's quite shocking that someone of his stature would go the lengths to post something like this without even tagging me in it. And Mr. Freeman sent me messages on my Thomas Take Sports podcast page and debated with me that these were not facts. Meanwhile, I gave him article after article, snippet of interviews after snippet of interviews that supported my take on this situation, that supported my bullet points on this situation, and yet he just didn't want to hear it. He's that much of a Doug Whaley fan, as is the other gentleman, probably Andre and whoever it is that has these sports shows or whatever. None of these guys, by the way, I went to college with. None of these guys I was in public speaking classes with. None of these guys I interned with. These guys are just Facebook personalities. So to say beware of the rise of social media and then list off guys that are only on social media, that have never had jobs in this industry, it's an embarrassment. And I actually take it personally, because I take this very seriously, and I consider this work and dedication to getting the stuff right and illustrating my opinion and surrounding it with facts that support my opinion. So, drafting E.J. Manuel 16th overall in 2013, and this is the part that really just chirps me. E.J. Manuel was drafted by Buddy Nix after E.J. Manuel won the MVP of the Senior Bowl, in which SB Nation stated increased his draft stock. Okay, Buddy Nix was the GM on paper at the time of that draft. Buddy Nix was on his way out. Buddy Nix collectively talked with scouts, most of which were hired by Nix and Whaley, and said that he wanted to have their say as to which quarterback should be drafted, because these guys will actually be working with the quarterback and Nix will not be, because Nix was retiring. Therefore, Whaley and scouts decided, along with Buddy Nix, that E.J. Manuel was the best fit. So this whole notion that Buddy Nix drafted E.J. Manuel, I don't understand why to this day Bills fans say that, because it's not factual. It's not what happened. And to put out a hit piece on me and then to say these things, it makes me wonder just how convoluted is this situation. So we'll continue. Trading the 2015 first-round pick for wide receiver Sammy Watkins in the most loaded wide receiver class in recent memory. This is probably the closest legitimate statement this individual made. So he's putting out a hit piece or a slander piece without naming my name, without naming the name of the show or anything like that, so I have a chance to respond to it. So that's why I'm responding to it now. And he says, this is probably the closest to the legitimate statement that this gentleman made. What? While saying that everything I said was false. So he's saying that I said something true while saying that everything was false. Probably the closest legitimate statement this individual made. No question that Whaley rolled the dice on E.J. Manuel needing better weapons around him to succeed. Last I checked, the quarterback has to throw the ball to the wide receiver. Without the quarterback, trading up and getting a wide receiver is pretty irrelevant, don't you think? After drafting Manuel, he said the success of Manuel is what could help me keep my job or get fired. The EJ pick is 100% on me. This statement is a flagrant lie. Here's the quote from Doug Whaley on the selection of EJ Manuel. I always say it's a Buffalo Bills pick. You can assign blame wherever you want, but when we're in draft meetings, it's a consensus recommendation for a whole organization of where this guy's valued and where we should pick him in the draft. This gentleman, Mr. Freeman, took two snippets of two separate interviews. My snippet was one interview. His snippet was another. And he used his snippet from one other interview, years after the fact of them taking E.J. Manuel, where Doug Whaley said those things. Originally, 2013, Buffalo Bills held a post-draft luncheon where Doug Whaley spoke to fans. And it was right after Jim Kelly's football camp. And he said that the success of E.J. Manuel 100% rides on him. I will play that for you. I will play that all day long. I will get the clip and play it. I don't have it right now because I'm just giving my take on it, my talking points on it. But I will play that for you. No doubt about it. And when I play that for you, and when I play the other interview for you, they're two separate interviews. And I know that because those are the two interviews that I sent to Pat. So this is embarrassing, to be quite honest. For him, I'm very thankful that I saw this post, that I could critique this post, that I can put this out there, because he took two separate quotes from two different interviews and tried to use one quote as a talking point against my talking point. Extending Marcell Dareus for $100 million, making him the highest paid defensive tackle in the history of pro football at the time. Once again, the statement is not true. Marcell Dareus, according to the NFL Network, agrees to a 6-year, $100 million contract extension, $60 guaranteed with the Buffalo Bills. That's what I just said. One other very important point is that Jim Overdorf is in charge of contracts and only enters a negotiation with a player's representative based on the recommendation of head coach after examining the salary cap ramifications. Jim Overdorf writes the contracts, is in charge of contracts, but Doug Whaley is the guy that gets the ultimate go-ahead. That's like saying, oh, the offense was run this way because the offensive coordinator wanted to run the offense that way, and the head coach wasn't involved in that. You know how asinine that sounds? You know how ridiculous that sounds? To say that that doesn't work that way, or that it works any other way than that. The GM tells these staff members what he wants to do as a collective unit. And it was a massive, massive mistake to give Marcell Dareus that much money. I knew that then. I knew that while it was happening, and I know that now. To say anything other than that, to judge that point, to critique that point, or to debate that point is just flat out ridiculous. It really is. Extending both Tyrod Taylor and Cordy Glenn. Extending Tyrod was his way of trying to cover his own tracks for his failure of taking E.J. Manuel. Cordy Glenn hasn't been healthy since he was drafted by the Bills and still can't stay healthy in Cincy. To think Brandon Beane turned to that player for pick trade into a pick for player trade to acquire the selection that led them to Josh Allen just shows a huge thinking gap. This statement is just totally false. Both players were extended based on the recommendations of head coach Rex Ryan, who was very happy with both performances on the field. Did I say anything about Rex Ryan? Did I say anything about Rex Ryan being involved in that? No, I did not. And yes, what he said is also true. Rex Ryan did make recommendations about extending Tyrod and Cordy Glenn. Doug Whaley listened to Rex Ryan. So any way this gentleman tries to cut it and defend Doug Whaley, which is just completely asinine to me, he can cut it that way and try to fluff himself up and make himself feel better about his opinion, but that's not factual to do that. To say, oh, this is false. It was the recommendations of the head coach, Rex Ryan. Did I ever say that it wasn't the recommendations of Rex Ryan? Did I ever say that Doug Whaley, or did I ever say Rex Ryan didn't recommend that? I said that Doug Whaley listened. He obviously listened. If Rex Ryan made those recommendations, what GM listens to his head coach like that? Makes those massive financial decisions based on what the head coach wants. The head coach that was essentially on his last legs heading into his second season. So, if Rex Ryan was the choice of Terry Pagula and not Doug Whaley, why would Doug Whaley listen to him? Why would Doug Whaley be a coward and listen to the head coach on decisions that are made with the team. No matter what way you cut it, whether this gentleman believes he's right or whether I believe I'm right, we do know that Doug Whaley mismanaged the team, ruined the salary cap, put the Bills into a literal salary cap tank mode in 2018 that did not allow them to pick up free agents, that did not allow them to make the decisions that they wanted to make. And Doug Whaley was just flat out bad. Doug Whaley was just flat out awful. But upon further reading this, of the 27 players he drafted from 2013 to 2016, only 2 currently remain with the team, Shaq Lawson and John Miller, sitting in both rooms while Buffalo hired Rex Ryan, who brought a scheme that didn't fit Whaley's players, and hiring the emotionless Doug Marrone, who would go on to quit on the team. This final statement would assure that you be aware of all social media sportscasts, because this guy would be unemployed if he was working at a traditional accredited media outlet. The final statements from top to bottom is filled with irresponsible statements from someone who apparently only answers to himself, because he absolutely has no clue of how a Western New York hometown team is structured as an organization. And then he just goes on to fluff his own show, which was a real joke. So, as far as me not working, being unemployed, if I was working at a traditional accredited media outlet, I am employed by a traditional media outlet. So, I don't know what more to say on that. I really don't. He didn't even talk about why this was false. He just said irresponsible statements from someone who apparently only answers to himself, because he absolutely has no clue how the team works. Okay. Sitting in both rooms while Buffalo hired Rex Ryan. He was sitting in both rooms while they hired Rex Ryan and Doug Marrone. Doug Whaley, Russ Brannon, Terry Pagula. Those 3 gents all teamed up and decided to hire Rex Ryan. Doug Marrone, different story. But I didn't say that Terry was in the room when Doug Marrone was hired. I said, and the hiring of emotionless Doug Marrone. If I'm the GM of a football franchise, and this was the point I was trying to make with that, and I actually extended that point in another episode of the podcast, that this guy didn't want to listen to, which I wouldn't want my point to be debunked either. But if I'm the GM of a professional sports franchise, I am going to have a say. I'm not going to let other people tell me what I'm going to do. I'm going to at least throw my opinion out there, and if they want to listen to it, fine. If they don't, they don't. Doug Whaley didn't either. He sat there and let this team make the decisions, and also threw in his influence and agreement on these terrible decisions, knowing that it would affect his job mightily if it didn't go his way, if it didn't go the right way. So, to me, Doug Whaley sabotaged himself. Doug Whaley could very well have found another GM job, but owners around the National Football League, and I know this for a fact with people that I've talked to in Cleveland, that he could have been the GM of the Cleveland Browns. But even Jimmy Haslam was worried that he would not stand up and state his opinion. He would just kind of be a yes man to everybody around him. NFL teams don't want a GM like that. They want a GM that's thorough, that's forthcoming, that states his opinion and puts it out there within the staff, within the meetings. And Doug Whaley wasn't willing to do that. That's what I meant by that. How can you be a GM of a professional franchise and not have, quote unquote, much of a say in the matter? I think he did have a say in the matter, and I think he was wrong in both instances. But it's either he did have a say and he was wrong, or to the Whaley fans, he had nothing to do with these hires. Well, if he had nothing to do with these hires, then he failed at his job because he was supposed to speak up. He was supposed to be honest. He was supposed to be forthcoming. He was supposed to be that guy that would be one of those voices in the room that people could trust, rather than keeping his mouth shut and just saying, yeah, okay, we can do that. That essentially is why Doug Whaley is not a GM in this current NFL today. But I'm very glad I saw this post. I'm very glad I saw it because this is something that really I found disturbing. That this guy is a member of the radio telecasts on a radio station, and he felt the need to come after me. I'm actually honored by it because it shows that my stuff is getting out there, whether people agree with it or disagree with it. There was only one fact that was disputed, and it was disputed in one of the most elementary ways I've ever seen someone dispute something with me from a 45-year-old man, where he stated one quote as a counterpoint to my actual quote, realizing that those two quotes were quotes I sent him from two separate interviews, before EJ played and after EJ played. His quote was after EJ played. My quote was before EJ played. If Doug Whaley's first statement was that the success of EJ Manuel depends on my job depends on it, so to speak, then why was he still here when EJ Manuel failed? That's my question. We'll never get an answer to it because it's history. That's hearsay. All that stuff is in the past. But what I do know is I'm very thankful, as I stated in my original post, that the Buffalo Bills are heading in the direction that they are. And I don't know if this guy took this post the wrong way of any other dynamic other than football. I'm a football guy. I don't care about anything else other than the football X's and O's, the decisions that were made with Doug Whaley. I wanted Doug Whaley to work out. I wanted Doug Whaley to do well. I wanted Doug Whaley to help the Bills prosper. When the Bills decided to promote Doug Whaley to general manager, I thought, here's a guy that's been in the organization. They've groomed him for this moment. I really hope it pans out. I want the Bills to succeed. When he didn't succeed, when he made horrible decision after horrible decision after horrible decision, putting the team in ruin in order for a guy named Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane to come fix it, I was not happy with that. So anyone that thinks that I enjoy talking about past moments of the team where they didn't do well, I don't enjoy it. I would much rather be talking about how Doug Whaley led the Bills to 4 straight Super Bowl wins. But that didn't happen. It wouldn't be factual. And now here we sit, 2019, Brandon Beane's got the franchise quarterback in Josh Allen. He's got the corner in Trey White, which largely was when Brandon Beane wasn't here, but you get the point. They have pieces around their franchise. They have playmakers on both sides of the ball that it's going to be interesting to see how they fill this roster out. I know I'm excited. I know I'm excited for the show tonight. Brandon Koch of 716 Sports Post will be on. And tomorrow, Greg Thompson of Cover One will be on as well. But I have to do these things. I have to, state my opinion, and I'd much rather do it on a show rather than do it in a post. I know I'm not going to communicate with this guy because it's a waste of my time. He's already made up his mind. He's already said his opinion. He took to Facebook to not just slander me, but slander many other shows out there outside of his own, or outside of the ones that feel the need to kind of kiss up. And that's never been my style. I've worked with a lot of really great people in this business, and I know for a fact that they respect me and enjoy the show that I've created and enjoy the things that I have to say and the way I have to say it. If one person doesn't, if 2 people don't, 3 people don't, that's fine. I'm sure not everybody likes what Colin Cowherd has to say or what Jim Rome has to say or what Rush Limbaugh or any other big-name radio host, whether it's in sports or whatever entity that they're in. Not everybody agrees with everybody, and that's what makes this country go around. But to literally post something that says, hey, this is beware of social media sports, beware of this podcast, beware of viewer beware, and the rise of sports social media. That's a joke. That's really ignorant. And when Mr. Freeman felt the need to message me and dispute these facts, I just hit him with what my opinion based on those facts was. And that was it. I was respectful. I was courteous. I was willing to hear him out. And to go that route, to just promote his own show and other shows, was pretty unprofessional. We'll just say that. And I don't even know Mr. Freeman. I've never met him, never talked to him. Didn't know who he was until he decided to slander my work. And I'll never speak of it again. Only on this show, on this particular episode, I'm going to speak of it and say, wow, it's ridiculous. Sometimes, you have to acknowledge the hate. Because in this situation, I was acknowledging the hate from somebody that is in the radio business and is spreading these somewhat lies on podcasts that are the heartbeat on the future of the business. Why would someone in the radio business, of all businesses, say beware of social media sports? Social media sports is what's keeping the radio business alive. Social media sports is what's helping those radio guys in their 40s and 50s keep their job. So if anything, I among many other people, should be thanked, not criticized, not chastised, not thrown to the wolves, not thrown out there by social media. And it's funny because his post that was so anti-Thomas Take, we'll say, was commented on by people that have asked me to be on their show. And if they want to throw my name under the bus and they want to do that, then I don't want to be on their show, really. I don't have time for that. I'm not in this for petty, Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman debate. I'm in this for the success of me, myself, and I, and to promote the people that deserve to be promoted. Other than that, I don't need to deal with anything else other than that. I'm good. I'm great. I'm fantastic. That's all I need. And you're gonna generate some haters every once in a while. You're gonna have haters. You're gonna have people that decide to go that route, and that's okay. I'm not saying it's not okay for someone to disagree with my opinion. I would welcome that. And then I would debate it in a kind and courteous manner, just like I did the first time. But I would never post specifically about one thing unless my integrity is being questioned, and that's the case here. My integrity is being questioned, and that I don't appreciate. Meanwhile, promoting other people, promoting a gentleman that said that he was in the Bills building during that decision. No, he was not. He was not. That's fake news, that's a lie, and it's just a waste of time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep on keeping on. I'm going to do the Thomas Take Sports Tour this summer. I'm going to go to certain sports cities, interview certain sports people, and make this show bigger than it's ever been. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to focus on what the show's success is, and that is me delivering sports news to the fans that deserve that sports news. Anything other than that, I'm good. I'm good. And knowing that I have the technology and the ability to have guests on the show that are awesome. I had Kyle Trimble on of Banged Up Bills. He was fantastic. I will have Brandon Koch on. I will have plenty of guests each week, Wednesdays and Thursdays. Anything other than that is a true waste of my time. this post was a waste of my time. Granted, people probably wonder, why did you post about this in your show? Why did you talk about it? I had to talk about it. I had to. If I let this go, I wouldn't be doing the people a service. If I let go of the fact that a radio guy would slander each and every social media sports account, each and every social media sports entity, beware of social media, sports social media. Beware. That's a real dicey message to send, and that does not show credibility whatsoever for someone in the radio business. I know every person in the radio business outside of him would never post a post like that. They would always prop up the guys in social media. This guy knows that these entities like myself and many others are the way of the future. And the radio business is something of the past. Radio business is still thriving, but it's thriving based on the fact that podcasts are a part of the radio business. They're kind of cut from the same cloth, if you will. It is what it is. I really appreciate the fact that I had somebody that was willing to do that, because now I'm willing to say, hey, that's not okay. I can shed light on a subject that has probably happened to a lot of other podcast hosts throughout the years, where they have radio guys critique them and radio guys say, hey, this isn't right or whatever, try to rip it apart and without any basis, without any point to it. But nonetheless, I'm going to keep on keeping on. This show's going to keep striving. This show's going to keep shining, and know that you can always count on me to bring you great sports news, because that's what friends are for. Friends aren't, colleagues and whatever, the people that he operates with. That's not what I'm into. I'm not into operating that way. But I am into responding, and I had to respond. I'm Ryan Thomas. This was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Tonight at 7, Brandon Koch will be on of 716 Sports Post. Very excited to have him on. We're going to be talking Buffalo Bills, draft, and some of the projects that Brandon has going on. Take care, everybody.